Okay, for those of you who are joining us today, you're in for a treat. Dr. Steven Sinatra is in the classroom, and he's going to teach us all about high vibrational living. Are you ready for it? What are you willing to do for heart health? What are you willing to do for, being able to regenerate your life, return to how you used to be? Well, put on your seatbelts, because we're going to learn and grow together. And by the way, it's time to dance. I did not tell you that, Dr. Sinatra. So I hope you know how to chair dance.
Chair dance.
Chair dancing. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to mute our mics and we're going to start the theme song. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear. Bridges we burn. We make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening as well as my viewing friends on Facebook.com/Lillian's radio show. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful best day ever. And for those of you who've been tuning in since 2011, or maybe you just tuned into the classroom yesterday for the first time, please know I am so grateful for you. But if this is the first time someone said, hey, Dr. Sinatra is going to be in the classroom, if this is your first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends on Facebook.com, Lillian's radio show, /Lillian's radio show, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, many of us want to live the life of our dreams, but we're not willing to do whatever it takes. We focus on what we've been told. So many times we don't do research. We don't do the research that is needed to take our health back. When right there, without you even knowing, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I have heard about Dr. Sinatra for such a long time. I even have some of his oils even before I met him, because I heard that he was absolutely phenomenal. Well, here's what happens. He is an integrative cardiologist, and he knew at a very early age that he was going to become a doctor. Been doing some research. His mother was very ill, so he knew that he was going to go to medical school. And because when the student is ready, the teacher appears, accidentally he was placed in so many different places that led him to where he's at today. And those accidents were divine intervention. As we know, all those things are divine intervention. And so now Dr. Sinatra practices a very whole way to practice cardiology. Integrative, takes the best from the East, the best from the West, and creates a plan for you. One size does not fit all, and Dr. Sinatra is going to share about that today, and how we are electrical beings. Yes, we talked about being spiritual beings, but we're also electrical beings that need an adjustment with our vibration. How do we do that? It's a spirit, mind, and body, not just the body, not just the heart. And Dr. Sinatra is going to give us a holistic approach to our heart. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful and honored to have Dr. Steven Sinatra in the Lillian McDermott radio show classroom. So welcome.
Oh, it's nice to be here, Lillian. And that was a really outstanding introduction. I have to tell you, I mean, you really did your homework.
Well, I did, but
You
you know,
really
I
did.
wanted to fill in the gaps because in researching you, I learned that just like me, I am where I'm at because I was open and I said yes.
Mhm.
And you were open to whatever was happening to you, and you picked up what you wanted and let go what you didn't want. So share a little bit about integrative cardiology and how that journey of yours occurred.
Well, it started actually in medical school. I didn't match in my internship, so I ended up doing instead of doing an internship in straight medicine, I did an internship in medicine and psychiatry because at Albany Medical Center, where I trained, they didn't match on their residency in psychiatry. So I never thought I would be a psychiatrist. It was the last thing in the world I thought I'd do, but I ended up doing 4 months of residency in psychiatry to get my straight medical internship. And Lillian, it opened me up to a whole nother world. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, as a medical student, I didn't get involved too much with psychiatry. But when I was the psychiatrist on call every third night in Albany, New York, for the emergency room, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was a baptism by fire. There's no
Yes.
question about it.
Yeah.
I was so terrified. I was reading a book every other day. I was like, I mean, it was unbelievable. But it was a great learning experience for me, and it got me into mind-body medicine. I mean, that was the spark. And because of that, when I was a resident in medicine, I entered a Fritz Perls. Now, you're a little bit young, but the Fritz Perls disciples, they were in Hartford, Connecticut. They trained out in San Francisco. Uh, but I was in a Gestalt psychotherapy program,
Mm-hmm.
and I did 2 years of that in mind-body medicine. And then one of the books on the reading list was a book entitled Bioenergetics by Dr. Alexander Lowen. I
Mm.
was so enthralled with the author that I wanted to meet him. So I ended up doing a workshop in New York City. There was like 80 people in the workshop. I'll never forget it. There were only 4 Americans. They were all from South America, China, Western Europe, Australia. And I'm saying, how lucky am I? I mean, I just traveled 2 hours to New York
You
City.
said yes. You said
I
yes.
said yes, and then all of a sudden, I realized how important that was. So I ended up doing a training program in bioenergetics. So I became a certified bioenergetic psychotherapist, in addition to an internist and being a board certified cardiologist. My path has been rather unusual.
Yes.
And I realized I needed more training in nutrition, and I took the certified nutrition specialist exam back in the year 2000, almost 20 years ago, in fact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I passed that exam. So, and then I took the anti-aging boards from the American College of Anti-Aging Medicine. So my background is anti-aging medicine, nutrition, psychotherapy, internal medicine, cardiology, and that's basically it. You know, it's been a good journey.
But you know, all those things that you mentioned, it's like I don't know if you remember Sesame Street when they used
I
to play
remember
that
that.
little song.
Kids
Remember
Bop.
that little song? One of these things just doesn't belong here. Remember that one?
Yep, yep.
And well, nutrition. It's very rare that you find a doctor that wants to learn about nutrition. How much nutrition were you taught in school on your own when you were becoming a doctor?
You know, I would say not more than an hour or two in medical school.
Mm-hmm.
And then during your internship, that's another baptism by fire. You took up all the time. I mean, I was in the days of the every other night, every third night. I got to tell you, I mean, we called ourselves. I mean, we called it. Those were the days of the Iron Men.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were very few women interns. You know, I mean, I'm 73 years old, so I can. You know, I only had 4 women in my medical school class, and now the medical school classes are more women than men. There's like over 50 to 60% women as opposed to men.
Yeah.
But I remember in those days, we worked every other night. It was brutal. I have to tell you, it was tough.
So along the way, Dr. Sinatra, you made a discovery that about heart health, and how did that occur, and how did you confirm that with your patients that you were taking care of that this would work? So would you like share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really sparked me into nutrition and coenzyme Q10 and all
Mm-hmm.
those, you know, targeted nutraceuticals was when I was a board certified internist. I had just taken my exam at Yale, and then I took the exam. I did 2 years of cardiology fellowship, and I became a board certified cardiologist. So I was, fresh out of training. I was only 31 years old, 32 years old. One of my patients was from Ohio. I was practicing in New York, actually in Connecticut at that time. And one of my patients coming from Ohio wanted me to talk to this Dr. Jacob Rintz. Now, I said, okay, I'll talk to him. I thought he was an MD. He was a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
But he was 91 years old. He was a Dutch petroleum chemist. And he said to me on the phone that he discovered the cure for atherosclerosis. I go, what? He goes, yeah, I was supposed to be bypassed, and I created my own open arteries, et cetera, et cetera. I said, well, how'd you do that? Lillian, he's talking about vitamin E derivatives, phosphatidylserine, phosphatidylcholine, magnesium. It was a foreign language to me. I knew about magnesium and a little bit about vitamin E, but I said, oh my gosh. And then when I asked him how old he was, and he was witty and erudite and sharp, I go, oh my God, this is amazing. So at that moment, when I got off the phone with him, I became an alternative physician in recovery. I did. And I started to branch off into nutraceutical medicine. And I started to realize that there's a whole new world out there. Now, look, I'm a board certified cardiologist. I use pharmaceutical drugs. So if I have somebody dying in pulmonary edema or dying of a heart attack, hey, Lillian, I'm going to use whatever works. I mean, whatever works in an emergency, I'm going to use, whether it's a pharmaceutical drug, a pacemaker, a coronary artery bypass, a stent, whatever works. And, I've always used, some degree of pharmaceutical meds, although when I got into nutraceutical medicine and mind-body medicine, I was able to take a lot of my patients off pharmaceutical meds and use more natural medicines because people prefer that.
Sure.
And there's far less side effects. Now, was I able to do that with every patient? Absolutely not. But at least I was able to, balance the best of both worlds and give people at least control over their own health, because that's what people really want. Mm-hmm. People are looking to, not to rely on pharmaceuticals, so some have to, but, people want to control their own health and their own destiny. And, I would put them on that road less traveled, so to speak, once I pointed it out that was the way to go.
Yes. And so the combination that you feel that is very good for everybody for heart health.
Oh, the combination, I would bring in my pillars of healing. I mean, I like a non-inflammatory diet, for example. I like exercise, I like mind-body medicine. I love nutraceuticals, and maybe I should get into that because I met all the CoQ10 researchers when I was a young cardiologist. Now you got to realize Jacob Rintz opened me up. Then all of a sudden, I'm working with all these researchers. Fred Crane, Carl Folkers, who discovered coenzyme Q10. I'm in my early 30s, and I'm working with these men. And now, if I look at all of us in the world, there's only a few of us that really had the opportunity of meeting these pioneers on coenzyme Q10. So I started to research coenzyme Q10 in my early 30s. I had a lot of patients that responded to it. Then I did research in the dog model. I did research in the rat model. I did research in the equine model. And I did so much research on CoQ10, independent research, that it became one of my targeted nutraceuticals for not only heart health, but brain health and optimum health and just energy or whatever. And then I developed the Awesome Foursome, which I still use today, which is a combination of coenzyme Q10, D-ribose, magnesium, and L-carnitine. And what I discovered, Lillian, is that I became a big, what we call ATP, or an energy cardiologist, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And what I discovered was that these 4 nutraceuticals, when I would give them to my patients with heart failure, they would thrive. It was amazing. I mean, I got more people off heart transplant lists than you can shake a stick at, I can tell you.
Wow.
I mean, I can remember parents crying in my office with a 9-year-old where they can't find a heart to match that 9-year-old or that 12-year-old or that 17-year-old. And they would come to me because they heard it by, word of mouth. And there were so many patients that I was able to get them to a heart transplant. But then some of my patients, they refused. They said, wait a minute, I feel so much better. I don't want somebody else's heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, I read this article back in it came out about 10 years ago. And when I read this article, it gave me incredible joy. It was about how, the Cold War with these nuclear explosions in like Nevada and Arizona, they would measure carbon-14. They could tell the age of our cells.
Mm-hmm.
And by telling the age of your cells, these researchers published this, and it actually was in a New England journal. There was Scandinavian researchers. But what they said was that your stem cells, your intrinsic stem cells, can regenerate other organs. Like, we replace our epithelial cells in our mouth and nose every couple of days.
Yeah.
In our GI tract every few days. Our blood cells every 120 days. That's they're replaced by the bone marrow. But did you know you can replace heart cells? I didn't know that. Most people don't know that.
No.
So when I had people with massive heart attacks, destroyed hearts, cardiomyopathy, weakened hearts, whether it's a virus or alcohol or whatever it was, rheumatic fever, and I put people on eosum foursome, what I learned was that these nutraceuticals were driving ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, the energy of life that we learned in high school biology. And what I learned was that they were turning on our own intrinsic stem cells, where our own intrinsic stem cells were regenerating our heart.
Wow.
And when I read this article, a few years, 10 years ago, and then there was another article that only came out in 2017, which recapitulated the original researches from the Scandinavia.
Mm-hmm.
It was like music to my ears. So basically, I've been doing something with, again, the awesome foursome, D-ribose, CoQ10. Remember, D-ribose is a 5-sided sugar. It's the center of the ATP molecule. It's actually the center of the ATP molecule. And basically, when you use these nutrients together, somebody's going to discover the next step. But there's a hookup to maybe exosomes in our body, maybe our intrinsic stem cells. There's a message going on with the body where now we can regenerate heart cells. And that is the discovery that needs to be made.
So I want to add here that anyone who is watching, if you have a question for Dr. Sinatra, type in a Q and write your question down in the comment section, and I'll be alerted and we'll ask that question as soon as we can. But I already have a question that came this morning because they knew you were coming on, Dr. Sinatra, and it's from someone I know. It's a friend of mine, and she has a hole in her heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's present. It's called, I don't know if this is the name of the condition, but she wrote patent foramen ovale.
Yeah.
Okay. She said, can anything else besides surgery close that hole? Because she's making a decision right now whether or not, because she's had a couple of strokes, because they're saying that a leak in her heart is causing a clot, and that's causing strokes or mini strokes. And so they're saying that they think that she should, and I don't know if they're giving her concrete information or just saying maybe or perhaps surgery can help. But what would be your advice? I'm not saying giving her advice, because everybody should make their own decision. But what would be your opinion on something? Can a hole in the heart regenerate?
Well, I've seen this in my own practice. I've seen patent foramen ovales, and I've seen strokes in young women, by the way, in the young 30s. And it's an easy fix. It really is an easy fix. Sometimes they can do it non-invasively with, they'll put catheters in the groin, and they can put a little patch in the heart. Sometimes they have to do it surgically. But I would say that the downside is very little, even if they have to open the chest up. And again, depending on the medical center and the cardiologist or the surgeon involved, if you've had strokes, I would get that fixed. In other words, that's a little hole in the heart. And what happens is if you get a blood clot, let's say in your legs or your veins, it can travel up to the heart. You don't want it to go to the brain, because then that can cause, problems.
Yes.
Either a massive stroke, or, we don't need death of brain cells, not in the year 2019, because our brain cells are dying from, insecticides and pesticides and electromagnetics and Wi-Fi and computers. I mean, there's so many insults to our. See, here's the problem, Lillian.
Mm-hmm.
The most highly specialized cells in the body, like the brain and the heart, are the most vulnerable to environmental toxins. The third most vulnerable is our reproductive organs. And if you look at the amount of sterility in the world, particularly in women, it's a major problem. So the most sensitive organs, our reproductive organs, our sperm, our eggs that women produce, our brain, our heart, they are under the onslaught of environmental toxicities in the environment. So I would tell your friend that seek out a team, a medical center that does this on more than a routine basis. I mean,
you want an expert.
Center.
You don't want someone trying out for the first time.
Or, like once a month or something like that. You want somebody that has, that does this, once a week or a couple times a week. And there's medical centers that do this.
They're in Chicago, by the way. They're in Chicago.
That's good.
I'm being told that Chicago has the best of the best. So at leleast that's what they're trying to tell me. So I'm glad to hear that.
They're near the Mayo Clinic, they're near Minnesota and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's good. So you don't believe that the heart will heal the whole if
it hasn't healed by now, although I have seen metabolic cardiology do marvelous things in the worst congenital heart conditions. I mean, if your friend is thinking about surgery, I mean, if she wanted to take ribose, Q10, carnitine, and magnesium, just as the awesome foursome, I've had great success in my adult patients and my pediatric patients. I've never had a patent foramen ovale heal itself with metabolic cardiology, but again, I haven't seen that many cases. I mean, I've seen at least a half a dozen over my 40 years, but it's always worth a chance. But again, having a stroke would make me be much more aggressive.
Okay.
It's a warning.
And again, this is an opinion. He's not giving advice, and everybody is to be responsible and seek their own team. But this is great to know, because if there's a tiebreaker, having someone say, I have no financial gain in this, and this is what I've seen, that's very nice of you to share your opinion. So anyone who has a question, you can type in a Q and write your question down. And if we have the time, or we'll ask the question. So that being said, because I wanted you to talk about your awesome foursome, and then we're going to go into this high vibrational living that that I think all of us are capable of creating. But many of us have so many limitations with our beliefs that it keeps us from even saying yes to learning about vibrational living. So what is vibrational living, Dr. Sinatra?
Well, basically, the higher vibration of our cells, when our cells work at a very high vibration, and right now I have a big interest in water, because most of us are dehydrated, and there's certain waters, whether they're hydrogen waters, H3 waters, or deuterium depleted waters. I mean, I can talk about waters.
We can do another show on water.
Yes. Yeah, I can do a show on water. But basically, the reason why I'm interested in that is because they increase the vibration of our cells. Here's the problem. A lot of us the vibration of our cells goes down. Now, one of the reasons why cancer is probably the leading cause of death in children today, or why we're seeing cancer almost surpassing heart disease as the leading cause of death, is that the environment's become so toxic. And when the environment becomes toxic, the vibration of our cells goes down. In fact, MIT research has looked at this, and basically they looked at red blood cells. And if red blood cells are, let's say, impregnated with like a malaria virus or a virus or something, or a bacterium, the vibration of the cells goes down. Now, if the vibrations of the cells goes down to a point where cancer takes over, that's not a good thing. Okay, that's not a good thing. But if you can bring up the vibration of cells, and what these MIT researchers showed was that if you can infuse ATP, in other words, the energy of life, if you can, augment ATP into these cells, the vibration of cells increases. Now, when I read this information, it gave me this great aha. It was music to my ears.
I love all these yeses that you accomplish.
And basically, it sort of validated, a lot of the things that I was doing. So it's all about energy. That's the key. Look, I've said this before, and I've asked other cardiologists the same question. Have you ever been so romantically in love with, a person, a dog, it could be, nature, it could be, a religious, affiliation. I mean, you've been so in love with something that all of a sudden you don't get sick, and all your cells are vibrating, they're like dancing. And I've asked cardiologists this question. I said, have you ever seen a person young, in their 30s or 40s or 50s for that matter? I'm talking about young people who had a heart attack when they were romantically in love. None of them came back and said, I've never seen that. I've never seen that. It's just amazing. And I've seen a lot of heart attacks in like 30-year-olds. I mean, my youngest heart attack was in an 18-year-old.
An 18-year-old?
Oh, yeah. She was a woman on birth control pills years ago when the birth control pills contained, they caused a lot of clotting, of blood cells. But that was the older birth control version.
Yes.
Thank God I admitted her. I just finished my fellowship in cardiology, and people thought I was nuts. I admitted an 18-year-old girl to the coronary care unit. I was only a cardiologist my first week getting out of my fellowship. I took such flack, and then my partner that night had to put an emergency pacemaker in her heart because she was dying,
Oh boy.
in the middle of the night.
Good for you.
Thank God I admitted her.
Yes. And thank God that you have followed your intuition. You're so empathic, and you have followed your intuition your whole career. That's why you can say those resounding yes. Even if it was somebody else's accident, you took it as a yes.
I'm glad you mentioned intuition. I think, you see, men don't have intuition.
Yes,
Women
they do.
I mean, some of us, I've been working on my intuition for years. Believe me.
Well, husbands don't have intuition because the women trumps the man.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, no letters.
But I should say this since we're getting on this. When I was in the coronary care unit, back in in the early 70s, when I was at Albany Medical Center, I never saw a woman with a heart attack. I thought women didn't get heart disease when I was in medical school, Lillian.
Wow.
Never saw a woman with a heart attack when I was, a senior in medical school.
Wow.
Then in the 1990s, and I wrote this book, Heart Sense for Women, back in the year 2000. In 1996, the graphs of heart disease in women and men crossed. In other words, women were getting more heart disease than men.
Wow.
Think about that. Think about that. Now, in this book, I wrote about so many cases of women with heart disease and stuff like that. But I thought about that for a long time. Why were women getting heart attacks? Well, what happened with women? Well, they went out into the workplace. I mean, we talked about medical school. Remember, I had 4 women in my medical school class. Now the medical school classes have more than 50% women.
Yeah. So
women are out in the workplace. Women are going through the struggles that men go through, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's more than that. I think when a woman becomes a little more like a man, she's using more of her left brain over her right brain, she gives up something. And I think what she's giving up is more right-brained behavior. And I think she's becoming so facts-oriented, so data-oriented, she loses that little intuitive thoughts that she may have that are really the truth. So when a woman becomes more like a man, she develops a man's disease, which is heart disease.
Interesting.
And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of heart disease in women. It's because they're losing their right brain intuitive capabilities. And I think there's one other thing that protects women over men. There's actually two major things.
Okay.
Three. Childbirth is one.
Okay.
Having their periods is another. It's a release of energy. Now I'm talking
And
more
now
like
now many women are trying to avoid having periods.
periods are great for women. Now look, women
Yeah.
are going to hate me for saying this. But I mean, women are going to rip my eyes out and say, how can you talk like that? You're not a woman. But I've written a lot of books with women. I mean, powerful women who have coached me on this. So for you women
They've told
out there,
you what to say.
Okay. So basically, you know, whenever you release energy through the pelvis, through menstruation, you know what's one of the best things that protects women from illness?
No.
It's crying.
Crying.
Having tears out. In other words, who cries more, women or men? Well, women cry more than men. But if a woman becomes more like a man in the workplace, she might not have her sorrow. She might not be allowed to have her feelings. You know, it might not be, you know, manlike. You know, it's more ladylike, so to speak. So when a woman becomes more like a man, she develops heart disease. That's a male-oriented illness.
Interesting.
And I really believe that one of the best ways of protecting us from heart disease is crying, both for men and women.
So those are the three things. So childbirth, periods, and crying. So everybody's going to go get pregnant, have their periods, and start.
Well, men can't get, well, maybe, I don't want to touch that one. That's, but anyway, I will say this, that if men have their feelings more outward and women do, like sadness. Sadness is one of the best ways of protecting us from heartbreak that we've all had as growing children. I'm speaking more like a psychotherapist now.
Okay.
But once we can alleviate our own heartbreak and have sorrow out, tears out, that's one of those best healing things you can do for your heart. And that's why I wrote the book, Heartbreak and Heart Disease. Gee, that was my best book.
You've written over 20 books. So there's about every topic that you can reach out and get a Dr. Sinatra book on. And I've got so many people saying that they love your products, they love your books. And by the way, everybody who's watching today, if you need to like and follow me, but if you would like, because, you know, one of the credits for Dr. Sinatra that I have not mentioned is that he is an actor. Actually, he's been featured in the documentary, The Earthing movie.
Oh, the movie.
So everybody who instant messages me will get access to The Earthing movie. We'll give you some access. So if you haven't seen this movie yet, Dr. Sinatra is featured. And so that is my gift to you. If you would like to just instant message me, you can text me also at 407-373-5959. And Robert, if you can write that number down, that's 407-373-5959. Everybody who instant messages me or reaches out to me will get access to view this movie. It's a private screening just for you. Okay, so not only that, I also want to thank my sponsors for being a part of this information. How wonderful that we have someone like Dr. Sinatra in the classroom teaching us how to heal as naturally as possible. Some of the things that we can do to raise our vibration. You know, who knew that crying was the key?
That,
you know?
raises vibration, by the way.
Crying really raises vibration?
Yes.
And I wonder if it's because we become in tune with our feelings that we have detached ourselves from. We have detached ourselves from our source. And once the more detached we are from our source, the more depression, the more anxiety, the closer we are to our source, and whatever you want to call source, and the name you want to declare for source, the closer we are to that creator, the more we can be in tune with all the gifts that we were given. And so with that in mind, I want to encourage you. This is where we take 100% responsibility for living the life we want to live. We hear about, new truths that the old truths that we grew up with that don't support us anymore. This is where we learn new truths that will empower us and help us live the life of our dreams. So I want to ask you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Please become a subscriber, because this is where you learn who's going to be in the classroom and give you all the links to our teachers in the classroom. And while you're there, please check out my social medias, like, follow, and there's so many different icons. One of the icons is my sponsors. Without my sponsors, there would be no class. And this is information that you don't get on television, mainstream media. I don't have sponsors like the pharmaceutical industry, or I could not need any more sponsors if I did that. So the bottom line is, please support my sponsors like they're supporting the classroom, like Liberty Health Share, Keep Me Safe Organics, which is an all-natural, organic, non-synthetic, pesticide-free, non-GMO beauty products from head to toe. If you go there, you get 10% off all the products. I wear Keep Me Safe Organics from head to toe. First Alternative Care, please check them out. Dr. Stephen Grable, who is an ACIM graduate, and that's where I met Dr. Grable and Dr. Sinatra at the last ACIM conference that was in Orlando, Florida. Dr. Stephen Grable is in Jacksonville, Florida. He's a sponsor of the classroom. He's alternative, integrative, holistic, functional, and worth the drive to Jacksonville, Florida, or even a call to him. We also have the pharmacy in Merritt Island that focuses on compounding and natural solutions for you, as well as your pets. So your fur-legged friends can also benefit at the pharmacy. Mention my name and you get 20% off your first order. Live Longer Medical is helping people from the inside out to achieve the lifestyle that they want. They're in India Atlantic. You can go to livelongermedical.com, or you can just click on at whenyouneedafriend.com, all these sponsors, it'll take you right there. And of course, one of my favorites is Ground Therapy, and that's another link that I have with Dr. Sinatra. Dr. Sinatra has done a lot of research, double-blind, placebo, peer-reviewed studies with Ground Therapy, and I'm just thrilled that he can maybe share a little bit about what he knows about Ground Therapy. And of course, you could be the enrolled student, the teacher's pet. If you want to be a part of helping grow the classroom, please feel free to donate your time, your treasure, your talent, and let's help us grow so that we can learn together. And this has been such a journey of yeses for me, Dr. Sinatra. So I really value the fact that you have said yes so many times. Even if you didn't understand it, you were able to make the most out of that yes, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yes. And so when we're talking about vibrational living, I would never have thought crying, because we're taught from the moment we're born, especially men, especially young boys, big boys don't cry.
Right.
And so we're suppressing all these emotions. So is that contributing to a lower vibrational? Is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whenever you suppress emotions, your vibration suffers. I mean, we talked about love. You know, our cells dance when we're
joy.
Love.
Yes.
Joy is incredible. And crying, like we mentioned, is very, very important, because even when you have your tears, you're releasing, endorphins, and endorphins in the tears is a healing substance. So the other thing about crying that's very, very important is when you sob, it's involuntary. Any involuntary activity, like when you really deeply sob, is important. I remember when I was in Gestalt psychotherapy and bioenergetic psychotherapy, we had to do 200 hours of personal therapy to become a board certified, what we call a bioenergetic psychotherapist. And one of the issues I had when I went through therapy was I couldn't cry, because I grew up in the era where, my dad would say, stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. And as a young boy, I never cried. Now, as a heart specialist, I realized that by not having my sorrow, that I was at a big risk factor for heart disease. So I went into psychotherapy training to learn how to cry. And I spent thousands of dollars trying to do it. And I could never do it in therapy. I could never do it in therapy, Lillian. So here I am wasting all this money. Then I was at the movies one day with my 8-year-old son. And the name of the movie was Hoosiers with Gene Hackman.
Oh, yes.
Remember that movie?
I
With the
do.
basketball team?
Yes.
Well, that reminded me of, my own wrestling team days, in high school. And that movie made me cry. Now, the movie didn't make me cry. It just touched my sadness. So when anybody says a movie makes them cry, it does in a way. But remember, we all have sorrow. We all have sadness.
Yes.
So now here I am as a certified psychotherapist, board certified cardiologist. I go to this movie with my 8-year-old son, and I get touched in the movie, right? And I start having emotions out, and I'm crying. Lillian, I'm letting it go. I don't care who's next to me.
You paid a lot of money for those tears.
I saw the movie 5 times.
Really?
That was the best therapeutic movie for me as an individual. That was unbelievable. And even my son, I said to him, I said, Drew, I said, I need this right now. This is therapeutic. I have to do this. And it was great. It was great. So, I would tell your listeners, if you ever watch a movie, whether it's at home or, in the movie theater, and you get touched, it's just touching your own sadness, which is fine. We all have sadness. We all have sadness. We have to acknowledge it and let it be expressed. Once it's expressed, the heart becomes lighter. That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key.
And isn't there, and I know I'm going to say this, I always say it incorrectly, but there is a broken heart syndrome, Tukosobo.
Yeah, that's right. Takayasu syndrome. It's in, I've written about it years ago. I wrote about it in my book, Heartbreak and Heart Disease. I wrote that book in my early 40s. Mm-hmm. And broken heart syndrome is real. It's real. And even Dr. George Engel, he was a psychiatrist and also a certified internist. He was like myself. He had dual boards, Mm-hmm. And he talked about 200 cases of sudden cardiac death. And he talked about these cases. Some of them occurred with extreme joy, and also it's extreme horror and heartbreak. I can remember some of them. I heard him lecture. For example, a 40-year-old dad would see his son on the road run over by a car, would go over to his son, all of a sudden have a heart attack and die. Like two brothers haven't seen each other for 40 years. They would meet at the airport and one of them would have a heart attack and die. I mean, these are horrible stories, but again, it shows the impact that the heart is at the mercy of our autonomic nervous system. Yeah. That's why you mentioned grounding. Mm-hmm. So important.
Let's talk about grounding because that's part of
grounding gets the overcharged autonomic nervous system. In other words, if a parasympathetic or a sympathetic is up here and a parasympathetic is down here, we're out of balance. But if we're in balance, that's what you want. And that's what grounding does. It takes the overcharged sympathetic nervous system, because we all have fear. We all have shame. We all have sorrow. We all have grief. We all have anger. Now, some of us have those expressions or emotions more than others. So our autonomic nervous system gets higher charged. Vigilance is another one, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Mm-hmm. Fear, uncertainty. These are real emotions. But if you can bring the autonomic nervous system in balance, that's the beauty of grounding. And that's what I studied. I'll tell you, I think the greatest discoveries in my lifetime in medicine, I've been in medicine now 50 years.
Wow.
My two greatest discoveries are coenzyme Q10 and grounding. And they both share something in common. They're both powerful electron donors. In other words, they donate electrons and they sequester free radicals, which causes everything from cancer to heart disease to Alzheimer's disease to accelerated aging. The reason why we age is because of free radical oxidative stress. If you ground, or if you take coenzyme Q10, you're going to create less oxidative stress. You're going to age more gracefully.
I'm telling you, after I started doing research with what you were doing, I'm looking. That's something that I've never taken, coenzyme Q10, and I've heard all about it. And I'm now going to reach out and get some coenzyme Q10, give some to my husband, and make sure that give my heart a chance. Because when you're talking about people that have a heart attack when they see each other, or they have a heart attack, at that moment, even with great joy. I'm wondering if they have had a lifetime of suppression, so that when their heart becomes full,
explodes.
It can't handle it.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, that's, if there's one thing your listeners need to get,
Yeah.
as well as you and I mean, I try to strive for this. The key word here is balance. Balance. You don't want to be overcharged on one thing or another, because anger, I can tell you this as a heart specialist, anger is the Achilles heel of the heart. I mean, I've had more people have heart attacks and fits of anger or strokes for that matter, dissections of the aorta. I've written about these in case studies in the medical literature. I've had more situations, and what's worse than anger is rage. Uncontrollable rage is horrific. Anger is so, and we all have these emotions. We just need to learn to live with them in balance where we can get them out. And the key here, Lillian, is we all want to be productive, but we don't want to be self-destructive at the same time.
Yeah, but isn't anger and, those rages, isn't the root cause of that extreme sadness, feeling, unloved or without control, maybe not past life, but past issues that they haven't dealt with and they've suppressed them?
Yes. I mean, lots of them are due to internalized sadness, and unresolved issues. That's why, whether you talk to your spouse, a best friend, a clergyman, even owning a dog can be so heart calming to the person. James Lynch, he wrote The Broken Heart. He was a Baltimore PhD, and I've known him, years ago. If you have a heart attack, Lillian, and you come home to a loving dog who will give you unconditional love 100% of the time, no questions asked,
yes,
you'll survive a lot better than coming home to an empty house or a judgmental spouse. I mean, these are hard statistics.
Yeah, loneliness and not feeling like you belong is a huge contributor.
It's the worst.
Yeah, yeah.
Even during the holidays, we see more cardiac sudden deaths and heart attacks during the holidays. And if you look at it, Monday and Saturday are the worst days. So it's just incredible. But the holiday heart syndrome is a real syndrome. It came out in the New England Journal when I was a young kid. I was only in my 30s when it came out, but it's real. The holiday heart syndrome is real, where during the holidays, a lot of sorrow gets expressed. People realize the depths of their loneliness and depression.
Yes. Okay. So I just looked down and I realized that there is a question here that I did not realize that it was asked, and it's from Klaus Peter Bonert. I hope I said your name correctly. It says, some special advice for premium medication after bypass surgery 3 years ago.
Premium medication? Well, what's the medication?
Says. I don't know. So if you could be a little bit more specific.
Yeah, lots of medications are given after bypass. Some of them you can take for a limited period of time, like aspirin or platelet acting drugs or stuff like that, or diuretics. But usually after bypass, even in my own patients, many of them went off pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah. And some of these, people need to understand that some of these drugs are great taken for a short period of time. I don't know if I shared this with you, Dr. Sinatra, but my registered service mark is you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. And it's not that I'm against the pill. It's that I'm for doing whatever, like, something simple as taking CoQ10 or the high vibrational living, maybe having a good cry, some of those things that will help us release some of the tension that's being trapped in our body. And so, if there is medication, I love the fact that you work with the patient to say, okay, how can we reduce these medications? Because the side effects of taking medications could be death, taken the right way for the right reason, the right dose, under the right circumstances. So it's great that you're giving people options that will help with their heart. So if you could be a little bit more specific with that question, maybe Dr. Sinatra can answer that. So there's another question from Lee. She says that she has POTS, and that's POTS, not the, and I don't know what.
Yeah, it's paroxysmal tachycardia syndrome.
Okay, so she's wondering if these supplements that you mentioned will help her because she does not take medication.
Yeah, she could ground. Earthing would be helpful for her.
Okay.
To regulate the autonomic nervous system. Coenzyme Q10, I recommend just about for everybody because it's not only a membrane stabilizer, but it supports ATP production in the heart. I mean, like I said, I'll say it, I said it before, but my greatest discovery as a doctor is coenzyme Q10. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I love that.
I also like omega-3s, Lillian. I mean, I'm a big believer. I've said this many times at conferences. If I was stranded on a desert island, I would want a couple of cases of omega-3 essential fatty acids like squid oil or fish oil and coenzyme Q10 to be washed ashore.
But you know what? If you were stuck in a deserted island, maybe you had a friend with you, you probably wouldn't need any of the medication, right? Because you'd be all happy, no stress. You wouldn't have to pay the bills because you'd be living in a hut. Okay, so here we go. We have, I just want to mention to you that if you want to look into the grounding products, if you go to the shopping, if you go to whenyouneedafriend.com and you go to my shopping cart right there in the page, the first page of the home page, go in there and the grounding products. I right now, Dr. Sinatra, I've got my little pad at my feet.
Oh, you have your pad.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I got bare feet. I'm grounding while I'm working. So how good is that? I live half a mile from the beach, but I get to do more grounding at home than I do when I walk on the beach. So please research it. And if you would like to purchase it, I can reach out to me and I'll give you a code to get free shipping. So with that in mind, we have some more questions, Dr. Sinatra. Foods. Let's talk about foods and non-GMO and organic. What is your advice for that?
Oh, I would tell anybody, if you can eat organic as much as possible, just do it. And if you can't do it because of, expense, just remember, just avoid the 3 most toxic fruits and vegetables. For example, strawberries in Florida. We both live in Florida.
Yes.
Strawberries are one of the most toxic fruits. Apples too, and as well as peaches. So in other words, you must eat those organic because those are sprayed a lot. Okay, and nobody needs insecticides or pesticides. Avocados. You could probably go with a conventional avocado. If you want to go organic, that's great. I love avocados because of the monounsaturated fats. I especially like olive oil. I can tell you, I think olive oil is one of the secret sauces.
I just want to show you my olive oil. This is before. Okay, this is the one I bought before I met Dr. Sinatra, and this is what I bought just recently after I met Dr. How long will this last me, Dr. Sinatra? Because I had mentioned to you off the air that I consume very little oil, and I would love for after the podcast is out, I would love for us to continue the conversation and share your views on olive oil. Is that good?
Sure. Yeah, olive oil is important because I'll tell you, it just came out only 2 or 3 months ago that Okinawa has now been passed by Spain. Spain is the oldest living culture in the world, meaning that the average life of a Spaniard is better than the average life of an Okinawan.
Wow.
And Italy and Portugal came within the top 5 countries of the world. Do you realize the average Spaniard lives almost 8 years longer than the average American?
That's good to know.
And I think it's due to olive oil, but I'll talk about that in the
Yes,
Q&A.
and because we are almost.
I'll tell you why olive oil is important.
Okay, and we're almost done with the podcast, but for those of you who are joining us in the podcast, you're welcome to join us on Facebook.com/Lillian's radio show. Also, I want to make sure that you know that Dr. Sinatra can be found at drsinatra.com, or you can go to Vervana.com, which I want to know what Vervana, did I say that right?
Vervana. My daughter thought up the name because verde is green, and Ana means chi. of the heart.
Oh,
So
Vervana. Very
it's
good.
like the fourth chakra coming out, Vervana, you know.
Very good. Very, very good. It sounds like a musical group too.
Yes.
So if you know I can sing, maybe if you play an instrument, we can go on the road on a tour. So thank you so much for those of you who are tuning on our podcast. I want to hope you enjoy. Join us on Facebook.com/Lillian's Radio Show and at Lillian's at WhenYouNeedAFriend.com. Dr. Sinatra, it's been great. I love this conversation, and I'm looking forward to continuing after the podcast is over.
Sounds great.
And please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at WhenYouNeedAFriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Sinatra wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Yeah, that's the best
The opinions and advice
ever.
expressed on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, Dr. Sinatra, that was the best ever.
All right, good.
I must say.
We touched on a few things. That was good.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, so now, if for those of you who have questions, please type in a Q because many of you are making comments about how much you love Dr. Sinatra. I get it. We all love Dr. Sinatra, and I just so appreciate having this conversation with you. I've heard about you for such a long time, but to be able to have this conversation is so precious to me.
Oh, thanks so much.
And we're getting lots of love from everybody who's watching right now. And so what Klaus was saying is that coenzyme Q10 adding to pharmaceutical medication. What would you like to say about that? Would that?
No problem. I did it in my patients for years. Even on blood thinners, I never had a problem. Although there's been very, very rare reports where coenzyme Q10 could, excessively thin the blood if you're taking Coumadin at the same time, a powerful blood thinner. But
can't we just titrate the blood thinner? I mean, if coenzyme Q10 is doing such a great job,
right.
Can the doctors monitor you well enough to lower it to the point where you don't need any more?
Yeah, they can. But it's only been reported 3 times in the medical literature. But again, it's rare, but things happen to rare people. I mean, it happens,
Yeah, but if the doctor is working with you,
right,
to reduce, like I don't know if you know who Dr. Andrew Saul is, but he was featured in the documentary Food Matters, and Dr. Saul's been in the classroom about 9 or 10 times. I lost track of how many times he's been on, and he shared a story about this trucker that wanted to get off his blood thinners because it was affecting him a lot when he was going long trips and driving. And so he started talking to him about using natural, not synthetic, vitamin E, and working with a doctor to reduce the amount of the blood thinners and increase, and so work towards. And the doctor got upset with him because it was working, and he refused to get him off the medication. I don't know why a doctor would care if a medication is removed from that patient. Would you have any insight into that?
It's just, you go to 5 different doctors, you're going to get 5 different opinions. It's like anything else, and a lot of doctors are married very strongly to the pharmaceutical industry, and they believe in pharmaceutical drugs as the be all end all, and the only way to help their patients. And you have to support it because I'm sure they're doing a lot of patients a lot of good. I mean, pharmaceuticals have their light side, but they also have their dark side as well.
Yeah.
Statins probably, one of the books I'm rewriting now is A Great Cholesterol Myth with Johnny Bowden. I mean, statin drugs, they have a dark side. People have to realize that.
Well, one of the symptoms of the statins is dementia-like symptoms. The side effects is dementia-like symptoms, and they get off the statins and the brain function works really well, and they put them back on the statin. And I believe there's a class action lawsuit for people that have lost some of their cognitive skills because of it. And I'm not saying that people should get off their medications, but I'm saying that we need to become our own medical detectives, because one size does not fit all. When I say MD, be your own MD, your own medical detective. one size does not fit all. And for anybody to think that one pill is going to help everybody when we're so unique, it's like believing in Santa Claus. And I'm asking for everybody to look at the science and look at the data. And hopefully people will make their own decisions and choose what's best for them. So now, before we went off, finished the class, we talked about, and I mentioned this to you off the air, that Dr. Joel Furman, and I've had all the guys from Forks Over Knives, I've had Dr. McDougall, I've had Dr. Greger, all these wonderful doctors who say oil is bad for you, that it ruins your endothelial wall. And as a result, I have stopped having so much oil, but there are times where I put a little bit on, not too much. And of course, if I'm going to have olive oil, guess what olive oil I'm going to have? And so it's organic, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. And so let's talk about olive oil and the studies and the research and why we would have such opposing views.
Yeah, I mean, this happens all the time. I mean, I've been at the American College of Nutrition conferences with some of the speakers you've mentioned. I mean, sometimes it gets very ugly. You think Democrats and Republicans have ugly conferences? Sometimes this gets really bad. I mean, I've been there. But look, again, you go to 5 different doctors or PhDs or MDs, you're going to get 5 different opinions. But let's look at the world data, okay? The oldest countries, or the best countries in the world for longevity, are in the Mediterranean basin. Mm-hmm. Whether you're in Libya, Israel, Italy, Spain, France, Sardinia, Corsica, it doesn't matter. If you're in that Mediterranean basin, your odds of living over 100 years old is better than any place in the world, including Okinawa. There's more 100-year-old plus people in that Mediterranean basin. And I've often wondered why, as a heart specialist. Then I read this article about 7 or 8 years ago, how olive oil changes pro-inflammatory genes. Now, remember the Biogenome project that was discovered in 1993, where they can map our genes? Yes. Now, the newer doctors now, in the next 10 years, you're going to go to a doctor with an illness, and he's going to take your genetic profile. He's going to say, oh, here's your problem. We're going to take that genetic deficiency you have and, plug it up. We're going to fix it. That's the new medicine coming out. This is where this pharmaceutical industry is going to take a beating, because it's all going to be on genetics. I mean, but now they're raising up the vaccine. Like they're trying to get everybody to be forced vaccinated. That's another full radio broadcast.
I didn't mean to open a can of beans.
But what I want to say about the olive oil is that when I read this article about taking pro-inflammatory genes that we all have, we're born with them. What olive oil does is it takes pro-inflammatory genes and it reverses them back to a non-inflammatory state. Think about that, Lillian.
But how much oil? Because there are times when people cook with oil, because the Mediterranean and the people that are obsessed with like putting a quart of oil while they're sauteing their onions and all of that gets absorbed, and there's like an excess of oil. Are you talking about a tablespoon? Are you talking about a teaspoon or a cup?
I mean, the Predemed study, which looked at almost 8,000 people over 5 years, they were taking 4 tablespoons of olive oil a day.
Okay.
A lot of my colleagues take 4 tablespoons a day, including myself.
Okay.
I mean,
now, do you cook with it or do you drink it?
I put it on salads. I put it on fresh vegetables.
And you put it in your spices.
Yeah. Oh, that's my olive oil dipping blend. Yeah, I use that all the time. I crush it in my
There's the Mexican blend.
Oh, that's the Mexican blend. Oh, yeah, all my stuff. Oh,
I took everything I could at the ACIM conference.
But basically, if a person uses olive oil in their salads, I don't like to have people cook or saute in olive oil. You can do very light cooking because it'll take the monounsaturated fat and drive it more towards a saturated fat. Very high heats can change the fat content. But a
Yes.
monounsaturated fat like avocado is one of the healthiest things you can possibly put in your body. I mean, it does so many good things because it's like olive oil. It's a monounsaturated fat. But these pure vegetarians that throw olive oil under the bus, I mean, they're making a big mistake. I mean, here's the problem with rigidity. I've seen it on both sides of the coin. Not one size fits all fits
Yep.
everybody.
That's
It's
true.
so important. I mean, it's so
That's true.
important. But we have to look at epidemiology and we have to look at cultures. And basically, these cultures in the Mediterranean, it hasn't only been for the last 100 years, it's been for thousands and thousands of years of their longevity. And again, I really believe look, they do omega-3s in seafood. They do a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. They flavor their sauces with meats. They don't do chunks of meats like, the Americans do. But again, the average Mediterranean lives 8 years longer than the average American. Now that's huge. So they're doing something right.
And they also live in community, which
Correct.
I understand. And, dealing with my parents who are getting older and, that isolation sometimes that they set for themselves. And I've seen in the United States, like my parents are Spanish and we take care of our parents.
Yeah.
But there are cultures who don't, and they just let their parents, they're not grateful for whether they were teachers that taught you how to be or how not to be. They gave you life.
Right. Exactly.
They gave you life. And there's that love and compassion that we need to have for our elderly that exists in Europe, exists in China, exists in other places, but it does not exist in the United States.
Oh, well said. Well said. I mean, it did exist with the American Indian. The elders were always revered because they had one thing, wisdom.
Wisdom, exactly.
You only get wisdom by putting age on. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately,
the American Indian, that's how they taught grounding. That's how Clint Ober, learned from the American Indians. It was amazing. He grew up in Montana, and he was my co-author on what's that book?
I've got it right here. I got Earthing.
Yeah.
I've got the Earthing book right here.
There
That's
it is.
right.
There's Clint's name. And Clint grew up in Montana. And the first thing on the movie that you're going to show is that he walked into an Indian teepee, and the older woman said, "Take off your shoes. They'll make you sick."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Take off your shoes.
Yeah, and like I said, we've become so detached. And as a certified life coach, when I deal with people that have, they're anxious or depressed, and I wrote a book, which, by the way, if people become a subscriber of the classroom, whenyouneedafriend.com, they get the free gift, a book that I wrote called 90-Day Challenge to Self-Love. And the reason why I wrote that book was because that week that I was doing a show on self-love, the psychologist that was on there, I told him, I said, I've had so many people send me emails about anxiety and depression, and here we are going to do a show on self-love and loving yourself and accepting yourself and embracing. And he said, Lily, that's the number one cause, or lack of love is self-love, is what causes all these depression and anxieties, because you've lost that connection with self.
I agree 100%.
And God and that source and that creator is in us. So if we lost that connection with ourself, chances are we've lost that connection with our creator.
The best book I ever wrote was this one.
And let's see what that.
Health Rub. Do you have this book, Lillian?
No, I don't. I want it. I want it now.
Gosh.
Can we do a class on that one?
Yeah, let's do a class on heaven and earth. And if you want to have Tommy on it, can you have two authors on at once?
I can have 5.
Oh, that's great.
Let's have
let's
Tommy.
Do something with Tommy,
okay,
because
okay.
Tommy is great. I mean, Tommy.
Okay, that's going to be our next classroom set. So we'll set that date, and we'll get Dr. Sinatra back on. Okay, so tell us more about your book.
Which book?
That one you just saw, The Heaven on Earth.
Oh, this is an incredible book. I met Tommy at a conference in Florida about 7 or 8 years ago, and his wife is a medical intuitive, and Tommy was run over by a car when he was around 40 years old. He died. He went to heaven and back. He saw spiritual healers in heaven. I mean, it's a great story. It's an incredible story. And he saw me on television, and his wife said, that's going to be your doctor. Now, here's the deal, Lillian. Spiritual healers can help other people, but they can't help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they need to network with other healers out there.
Of course.
So I went to a Lee Cowden conference in Florida about 8 years ago, and Tommy was there, and it was amazing. I had a hip replacement surgery about, a month or two before,
Mm-hmm.
and I had some skin cancers on my face, and I had them removed. But I forgot to tell the plastic surgeon that I had a hip replacement, and now I had this pain in my hip. And I'm thinking at the conference, I said, "Uh-oh, I hope I don't have a staph infection in my hip." So I meet Tommy at the conference. He walks up to me and he goes, "I have some important news for you." I go, "What?" He goes, I know you had a hip replacement, and you have an infection in your hip." I go, "How can you possibly know that?"
Wow.
You know what he tells me?
What?
He goes, "Spirit told me." I go, "Spirit told you?" I go, "Okay, now we got to talk." So we became best friends. And that's what happened. He got the spiritual message. And basically, by meeting him, I was able to, attack the problem quickly. And we had a happy ending. But I'm so glad I met Tommy, because even a doctor like myself sometimes forgets, and you can bring something on.
Part of your high vibration that I was researching, you focus on being positive and being grateful and honoring your feelings. And we talked a little bit about crying. Let's talk about, because on there, let's talk about lack of forgiveness, or lack of wanting to, because I do a lot of classes on forgiving and the practice of forgiveness and the importance of forgiveness. Gratitude is important, but what about when we're harboring resentment and that lack of wanting to release the other person?
There's no doubt about it. Resentment is a very, very toxic emotion. Again, I talked about that in Heaven and Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's extraordinarily toxic. And the problem is, if you can't forgive somebody, you keep that person on the hook. What you're doing to yourself is even a greater disservice. Now, are you familiar? You're a little bit young. Are you familiar with Louise Hay?
Oh my God. How old do you think I am? Of course I am. She's my superhero. I met her when she was 90.
She says breast cancer and resentment are connected.
Cervical. She had cervical cancer as well.
But this is breast cancer as well. To me, it makes sense,
Yeah.
no matter whose work you read, it's the emotions people don't realize, but the emotions are such a big factor in illness today.
Yeah.
The mind and the body are connected. They are so connected. We talked a little bit about the autonomic nervous system.
Yes.
But again, look, life 101 is difficult. We all have sorrow. We all have resentment. We all have anger. It's in other words, we just have to take those emotions and let them go like this. Just let them be there, and let them just, they come in our body and go out of our body. We don't want to harbor that emotion. I've had so many people tell me as a heart specialist, I can't stand this person. This person keeps me up at night. I'm losing sleep over it. I go, why don't you just forget it? Take them off the hook. It's so hard for people to do that. But once they can do it, it's instantaneous. It's like magical. The body begins to heal. I can say that from being a psychotherapist and a cardiologist.
Yeah. And what I believe that the problem is the saying, forgive and forget. And unless you have dementia, you don't forget. Yeah. And so forgiveness has become synonymous to, exonerating them, saying that, oh, they didn't do anything wrong. And there's a difference between trust and forgiveness. And I think they get lumped up. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you allow them back into your life to hurt you again. At what point we have to learn lessons. So we can love people from afar, but not wish them harm.
Right.
Because
exactly.
because what we send out to them, it's going to come back to us. So that's why, and a little bit about me, one of the reasons I always close the classroom with I wish you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance is because those are the words I use for people who have hurt me.
Good.
And those are the people, because those are the words that I use to practice forgiveness and to start the forgiveness process. And because I know that what we wish onto others comes back to us, and releasing myself and being able to forgive somebody and releasing myself, I am sending them blessing and I'm receiving it too. Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And by the way, Tommy learned that in heaven.
Really?
I mean, oh yeah, this is, oh my gosh. I mean, even the table of contents, the health revelations, we have purpose, self-love, body temple, grounding, vital force, faithfulness, connection, but forgiveness is in here. I mean, and self-love and everything else. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why we'll do a show with Tommy.
Yeah, we'll do that.
If you're
I love
interested in talking about, see what you're doing, Lillian, and this is why I think your show will be a great success going forward.
Thank
You can't just talk about the physical and the emotional.
Yeah.
You got to tie in the Trinity,
Yes.
physical, emotional, and spiritual.
Yes.
And maybe in conclusion, I'll say this because it's important. As a doctor, I know this to be true. When people get sick, you know, it means that their physical, emotional, and spiritual life has gotten off course.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, illness, I strongly believe this. I think illness is placed in our path for a reason. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, it's almost like the angelic realm shaking you and saying, okay, I'm going to make you sick so you get on the road that we need to travel on. And that road is not only the emotional and physical, but the spiritual as well. So I think that, and especially after meeting Tommy, I mean, the whole spiritual realm is important there. But illness frequently is created by those three domains being out of sync: the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical. When they're out of sync, illness tends to incorporate into the body.
Yeah.
And it could be anything.
Yeah.
Fatigue, environmental, a heart attack, cancer, you know, Alzheimer's. I mean, any type of illness. It could be anything, you know.
You know, Dr. Lee Cowden came on, and I think he said it the best of everybody that I've had, all the teachers that I've had since 2011 in the classroom. He said it best when he said, you know, many people try to work on the body, and it's very expensive to heal the body. But when you heal the spirit and the mind first, the body will heal very inexpensively.
Oh, yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We carry resentment, we carry all this slack, and we're going to have this conversation because I know that this is about a higher vibration. And when Tommy and you come back on, I'm excited because next year, I am so convinced of the importance of aligning the spirit, the mind, and the body that next year I'm dedicating the year to spirit.
Oh, nice.
And so it works really well that when the student is ready, the teachers appear. So I'm excited to have you guys back on that. But before we go, because I know I want to honor your time and all of you who have, all of you who stayed on way after the class is done. Teachers' pets. Remember because
by the way, if anybody wants the best pet treats around, you know, Ageless Paws, I love my pet treats.
Oh, I didn't know about your paws.
Yeah. Oh, I have to tell you this, Lillian.
Okay.
I've had dogs all my life. You know, when I was a young boy, my younger sister would bring strays home and everything else. But over the last 30 years, over the last 7 or 8 years, my last 3 dogs died, but they all lived to like 16, 15, and 15.
Wow.
I had an elk hound and 2 chows. And, you know, I spaced them out. At one point, I had 3 of them, though, because I realized how healing, you know, dogs can be. I mean, I believe this with all my heart. I mean, dogs can heal us because of they just vibrate their unconditional love.
Their unconditional love, yes.
Unbelievable. So I started to give my dogs CoQ10 at an early age when they were 3 years old. And then when I realized that they outlived their counterparts by, you know, 2 years, 3 years, that's a long time for a dog to outlive another dog. You know, the average age of a chow is 11, 12. They would live into 15. That's huge, you know?
Wow.
And that's why, you know, I started to develop pet treats. And I started to use turkey heart, bison, chicken liver, salmon.
Do you
These
put
are all,
CoQ10 in your treats?
no, in these treats, because they're taken from certain organs, are endowed with a lot of natural CoQ10.
Really?
And then I have CoQ10 drops for dogs. You
Do you have CoQ10 drops for
drops
for people?
Actually, people can take these. I mean, but you know, if people can't swallow pills, I mean, you know,
they can have your doggy treats.
Yeah, they not. Well, the doggy treats people have eaten them, but the CoQ10 they can have. You know. Oh, jeez.
All of a sudden, life gets rough.
Oh, that's right. That's right. People are like a dog, right?
Rough.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but, you know, dogs die of heart failure. They die of cardiomyopathy. So CoQ10 protects dogs from, you know, heart-related illnesses. And I'll tell you, people spend a fortune on their dogs with vet bills and everything else. And heart failure is a big one, you know. They call it asthma in dogs. They call it a cough in dogs. They call it dreadful fatigue. But it's all heart-related. Most of it's heart-related.
yeah, I tell you what. So, okay, so we could go on forever. And I can see why all of you love Dr. Sinatra, but I want to encourage you to go to his website, Dr. Sinatra, get all his products at Vervana. And you can also go to whenyouneedafriend.com, become a subscriber, and make sure that you go to the shopping cart. If you want to get grounded, let me know, and I will send you a code to have free shipping. Also, for those of you who want to see Dr. Sinatra's debut, I don't know if you've been on any other documentaries.
I'm only in there for a couple of minutes, Lillian.
No, but you were the star. But so for those of you who would like to watch the Earthing movie, if you send me an instant message, or you can text me at 407-373-5959, you will get a free viewing code so that you can access it from the privacy of your own home. Let's see, what else do we have? And of course, like and follow us and continue. We're going to have Dr. Sinatra back. Obviously, you're adored by many, Dr. Sinatra, and not just your wife, but I'm sure that many, many more have been so grateful for the yeses that you've said in life that led you down your path, your yellow brick road, that got you to know that you had the power in you all along, Dorothy. So it's so wonderful to have you in the classroom and be our teacher. Is there anything that you would like to share as we step into the holidays and step into this 2020 new vision for our life?
I would just say, you know, whatever emotion comes up for you in the holidays, just live it, experience it, and just have it. Whether it's joy, sadness, whatever it is, just have it. It's important.
Oh, I've got to ask you a follow-up question. Can you cry now? Do you still cry?
I haven't cried. I'm trying to think, was the last time I cried.
It's time to get Hoosiers out.
Actually, I did have a little tears. When was that? I was watching something on television. I can't remember what it was, but I did tear up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was on, had something to do with politics. I got touched in a way. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember.
Well, I tell you what, recently. It's great advice. Go watch a tearjerker, and doctor's orders, right, Dr. Sinatra? Watch a tearjerker.
Hoosiers I would recommend. Gene Hackman was great in that movie.
Yeah.
Reminded me of my high school wrestling coach. It was unbelievable.
You know, I just saw a movie, and just in case people want to watch this one, this one made me cry. It was a funny movie with Mark Wahlberg. It's called Instant Family. I don't know if it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime, but that movie, it's about adoption and adopting a family that's not people that are not adoptable, and they ended up adopting 3 kids. And so it's a great movie, and what goes through when people go through adoption. Great. If you want a good cry, it's called Instant Family, and perhaps you'll want to watch that tonight so that you can enter the holiday season with your heart being full.
Remember, laughing is as good as crying. In fact, Al Owen used to do that to me all the time. I mean,
What is as good as crying, did you
Laughing,
say?
laughing.
Laughing. Okay. Well, I like that one too.
Good as crying.
Okay. So everybody cry and laugh. It reminds me of that movie, Broadcast News. There was a woman that was the head. I'm trying to remember her name. Maybe some of you can tell me what her name is. But she was an excellent actress. And in the movie Broadcast News, I remember she would always cry. She would unhook her phone and she would cry for 1 minute every day. I mean, bawling. And then she would compose herself and she was good. But, you know, I would look at something like that going, woohoo, because, you know, we're told not to cry.
Yeah. Do you remember the perfect storm?
Yes.
That happened in the Northeast about, 15 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah, they even made a movie about it, right?
Yeah. I happened to be on a ferry boat going from Labrador to Newfoundland.
Oh, boy.
We weren't in the heart of it, but we were on the fringe of it. And we were salmon fishing, and I remember my brother and I were on that ferry, and people were so seasick, because the water was coming over the bow. It was a car ferry, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a Peter Sellers movie on called The Pink Panther.
Yeah.
Do you know, my brother and I watched that movie. I think we're the only people on a boat that didn't get seasick.
Really?
Because we were laughing. See, laughing takes you out of fear. And fear and panic are the things that cause you to get sick. And that was a great experience for me, because I realized how
what a great story.
powerful laughing is. You know?
What a great story. Worth the extra time. Thank you so much, Dr. Sinatra.
It was great.
And for those of you who are excited Dr. Sinatra has made his way to the classroom, stay tuned, because he's coming back, and hopefully we'll see him regularly in the classroom. So thank you so much. And may you have a blessed holiday season.
You too.
And for all of you, we will, hopefully you will send me some messages so that you can get the free viewing of the documentary and start healing and growing, and know that you have the power all along. So we'll see you soon. Say goodbye, Dr. Sinatra.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.